Are you thinking about making a move to White Rock, BC? Well, if you are, before you pack your bags, let's talk, because while the beach is stunning and the lifestyle, it looks like a dream, there are a few things that most people, they don't find out until after they move in. And for some of those people, well, that's when regret starts to kick in. Now, I'm not here to try and scare you off of White Rock. It's quite the opposite, actually. I've lived in the South Surrey and White Rock area for over 25 years now. I raised my boys here. I absolutely love it. But I've also seen what catches newcomers off guard, and it's not always what you might expect. And so in this video, I'm going to break down the top 5 things that people complain about when they move to White Rock. And I'm also going to show you why most of those concerns are either misunderstood or they're hiding long-term upside. Because if you're thinking about downsizing, relocating, or you're just craving a slower pace of life near the ocean, this could be exactly what you are looking for. However, there are a few things that you need to know first, or you could end up making a very expensive mistake. Now, before we get started, if you're new to this channel, my name is Glen Hopkins, and when I'm not creating videos like this, I'm out in the field helping people just like you buy and sell real estate. So if you are thinking about making a move anywhere in Canada and you'd like to have a chat about your specific situation, feel free to reach out using the link in the description box below. Okay, now stick with me, because in just a minute, I'm going to share with you what most people completely misjudge about White Rock's older homes and some of the patchy streets that you're going to see around here. Because what might look like, a bit of a mess might actually be your biggest opportunity. So let's start off with the obvious here. It's beautiful, but it is not cheap. White Rock, it is gorgeous. There's the views, there's the water, the sunset, and it's all real. And when that tide goes out, you can walk forever along the beach. You can hear the seagulls, the kids playing, the water. It stretches out for what feels like miles. So it's very peaceful and it's alive. And in the summertime, it literally feels like you're living a vacation every single day. But that beauty, it does come with a price tag. Even the modest homes here, they often push 7 figures. Also, taxes are higher than other parts of the Fraser Valley. And if you're coming from places like Langley or even parts of Surrey, you might be surprised how much less you get for your money here. So yes, White Rock is expensive. But there's a reason that it stays that way. You see, there's very little land left to build on. Also, the ocean views, they're protected, and demand, well, it never really goes away. So yes, that buy-in is going to be higher, but the payoff is long-term stability. This isn't just about buying a home, it's about owning something scarce. And in real estate, well, scarcity, it almost always leads to stronger value. Now, if you're wondering how far your budget can go in White Rock, or what you might have to trade off to make it all work, feel free to reach out, give me a call, we can have a chat. Now, let's talk about pace for a minute, because not everybody is ready for it. You see, White Rock is small. It's just over 25,000 people, so it's pretty quiet. There's no real nightlife to speak of, and most cafes, they shut down relatively early. And then in the off season, it can feel like the whole town goes to sleep by about 8 p.m. And so for some people, especially if you're coming from somewhere with a little bit more energy, it can feel slow and maybe even too slow. But here's what that really means. That stillness, that slower rhythm, it's what makes this place so special. And for me personally, coming from Toronto so many years ago, one of the biggest reasons that I moved here was to raise my boys, and I want to raise them somewhere safe, somewhere quiet and next to the ocean. A place with a real community vibe rather than a big city vibe. And White Rock gave us just that. It's got this sense of calm. It just makes you feel connected. So you're going to see familiar faces when you're walking the streets or you're in the grocery store. You can walk the pier in the evenings, enjoy the sunsets, all of that. However, having said that, it is not buzzing like it is downtown Vancouver. So if you're looking for a little bit more energy, you're not going to necessarily find it in White Rock, but you can find it just up the road in South Surrey. Or heck, if you even wanted to, you could head into Vancouver, which is really not all that far away. The difference is that here, you can choose your pace. Now, we need to talk about summer for a minute because that is a whole other story. If you haven't lived through a White Rock summer, let me prepare you because tourists flood the waterfront. Marine Drive, it becomes a complete zoo. Parking, it's next to impossible. I mean, good luck, right? People are lined up for things like fish and chips, walking the pier. There's a crowded beach. And yeah, if you live near that action, it can be a little bit frustrating, specifically if you're in one of the condos along Marine Drive and you're trying to get in and out of your parking space and, maybe out of town. But for me, that summer energy, it's one of the reasons that I absolutely fell in love with this place because, there's just something about it. The kids on the beach, the smell of the salt in the air, people laughing, they're walking with their ice cream cones, all of that. And I remember thinking when I first moved here, wow, I don't actually need to get on a plane to enjoy the beach. I actually live here now every day. So yes, it does get busy, definitely in the summer months, but that buzz, it's part of what gives it that beach town kind of vibe, right? And it's a big reason why property values also remain strong. But if you're picky about homes, you need to be prepared and you also need to be patient because White Rock, again, it's a tiny city and it's landlocked. And that means that there is not a lot of inventory to choose from. And once something good does hit the market, well, it typically moves pretty fast. A lot of buyers, they're looking for the same things. They want the views, the updates, the walkability, all of which means they're fighting for the same small pool of homes. And if you're waiting for the perfect one, you might be waiting a little longer than you'd like. But here's what that really means. That low inventory, it really isn't a problem. It's a form of protection, right? Because when you do buy here, you're buying something, it's kind of rare. It's not a cookie cutter home, that's for sure. And that's why prices, they don't really crash here the way they do in some other markets. Scarcity, it actually creates stability. So if you're looking strategically and you're decisive, that decision could pay off in a big way over time for you. And then there are the homes themselves. This is where a lot of people, they kind of freeze up because White Rock isn't neatly planned. It's not a neatly planned community. It's got its quirks, right? And you're going to see these gorgeous modern infill type homes next to 1960s shacks that look like they haven't been touched for literally decades. And some streets, they feel a little bit like a mix of luxury and then leftover. And that throws a lot of people off because when you're spending 7 figures, a lot of people, they want a neighborhood that looks the part. Am I right? But here's what some people miss. That contrast, that's White Rock's history, and that is an opportunity. This place, it started off as a beach cottage town. People, they used to vacation here in the summer months, and a lot of those original homes are still standing today. And some of them are very charming, right? Some of them are dated though, and some of them, well, they're ready to be completely rebuilt or torn down. And that, of course, is where the upside is. Tear down lots, older homes on good land, properties with a view, but no updates. That's where smart buyers, they can actually win because the people who bought those eyesores 10 years ago, well, they're sitting on gold right now. So no, not every block looks like a polished community, but house by house, street by street, this place is turning over. And if you know what to look for, you can find a great property. Now, if you're seriously thinking about making a move to White Rock, do not make the mistake that so many buyers make because it's not just about where you live. It's also about what you buy. You see, there are certain types of homes in White Rock that come with some serious red flags. There's hidden cost, resale issues, long-term problems that most buyers, they don't catch until it's too late. So in this next video here, I'm going to walk you through the types of homes that you should never buy in White Rock and why avoiding just one of these could actually save you tens of thousands of dollars. Now, if you have any questions or if you want to chat more about anything that we've talked about today, feel free to reach out. There is a link in the description box below. Otherwise, I will see you on the next video.